Aloha everyone, I hope you're doing well and staying safe. I'm just going to go ahead and jump right into this opener. So today I'm going to be talking about Studying Media as Media by Lance Stair. And it really goes back to the last reading that we talked about with media ecology. And that's what this study is, the media of media. So I wanted to go ahead and start off with a quote on page 4. It says, McLuhan's goal was the liberation of the human mind and spirit from its subjugation to symbol systems, media, and technologies. This can only begin with a call to pay attention to the medium, because it's the medium that has the greatest impact on human affairs, not the specific messages we send or receive. It is the symbolic form that is most significant, not the content. It's the technology that matters the most, its nature and its structure, and not our intentions. It is the materials that we work with and the methods we use to work with them that have the most to do with the final outcome of our labors. So I thought this was really important and kind of summarizes the whole thing of what media ecology is. It's to tap more into the human affairs of technology. And the best way to see that is how we interact with medium itself, not the content in which it's in. So the medium is the message because context cannot exist without the medium. The message change depend on the information that is received and delivered. So I found 3 things that show that the medium is the message. And the first one is medium precedes the message. The medium is the raw material. It's what comes first. You can't have a message without somewhere to put it on, or somewhere to show it, or somewhere to deliver the message itself. And so it's the raw material for the final product, which is super important and why the medium itself is super important. The second one is the content of media often is another medium. This is kind of hard to explain, but basically it's that there are smaller things within the medium that create a different medium. For example, the medium of speech becomes the content of writing. The medium of writing becomes the content of print. The medium of print becomes the content of hypertext. And so there are 2 other theorists, Bolter and Gruzem, who call this remediation. They compared it to like a computer, and how this computer is this medium, and all the systems and stuff that are in it is the content that's in it. Again, going back to the structure and the process and the nature of the medium. The third thing is the user is the content. And I thought this was very important because it's the audience and the reader that create what the content is, because they must interpret the message, process the data that they receive, and make meaning of it in their own environment and what's going to make sense and what's important to them. The message is more constructed on the receiving end than the delivering end. It has this limited effect. And so the context determines the content. So for example, the context of this video is for class, for you to have a discussion, so we can talk about this reading and that we can learn from one another. So that this context is why this content is being sent. Because if I was going to talk about this on Facebook or on a live chat or something on Instagram, it would be totally different because the context is completely different. It would be more of an interest, or this is cool, you need to check this out, or something like that, not for a learning purpose like this. And so with all of those things about medium as media, there were also critics. So I also have 4 things that critics usually point out. The first one is they miss the point that McLuhan is talking about. They miss the point and want to try and figure out, like a math equation, what exactly medium is the message means. But McLuhan says, well, it's a metaphor or an oxymoron. It's a I think he said metamoron. I didn't write that one down. But that's what he says. It's not, you don't figure it out, it's just what it is. The second one is critics also think that McLuhan is denying context altogether. However, that's not true. He's trying to put content in its place, which is secondary to the medium. On page 6, he says, whatever the consequences of the message we send, it is the media we use that play the leading role in human affairs. It is our technologies that shape us individually and collectively. So it's not really the message that we're sending out that plays the leading role, but the media in which we send it out. Again, going back to this video, I'm sending you this video so that it's kind of like a conversation between us, because it has a leading role in the human affair more than just what I'm talking about. This video means more because it's the interactive part of this class, for me anyway. So the third thing that critics often point out is they call it technological determination, which dismisses McLuhan's argument. And McLuhan never used the word determinism or argued against human agency. In fact, it's the opposite. He wants to engage in human affairs with technology. On page 7, Stair says, free will does not mean freedom from limits, constraints, and outside influences. Which means that there are consequences to technology, there are consequences to media, and there are good consequences, things that we predict, and bad consequences, and sometimes things that we don't predict or we weren't looking forward to. And so the media are the stuff which we build our social realities. We kind of use it as a mask, and we kind of take away from our own reality, and we become numb, and we're now in this new world that we've created for ourselves, which is really interesting. So the fourth complaint is a lot of people talk about this great divide between forms of medium, between orality and literacy and image and word, and all of this is true, and which only suggests that not one of these is greater than any of the other, which is super important. So media ecology scholars, what they do is they work dialectically, which means they are using contrast to understand media, understand more fully, and they use broad categories. They use these so that they can determine things and further study media as medium. They also say medium functions as environments, ecologies, and systems. Content is what happens within the system, and it may or may not affect the system. So I think of like a video game. When you're in these different worlds, you can build your houses, or you can fight the bad guys, or rescue someone, or get to the next level, or win the race. So that all the things that you're doing within the video game is the content, and the reality of where you're doing it is the media itself, if that makes sense. Technologies are an extension of our bodies. We talked about this in the last reading. But McLuhan emphasizes on the human end of technology. However, with that also comes a bad consequence, like we talked about. There's this numbing of the body and of the mind. And so he says that with every extension, there's also an amputation. With everything you're putting into this new reality, into the medium, you're also taking away or cutting away from yourself and from your own identity. Lewis Mumford argues that technology is not unique to humans. He talks like, think of a beaver dam or a bird's nest or an anthill or a beehive. Technology is an extension to nature. Technology is natural. It's a further advancement. And you think about this, it's even in a gospel sense, life is a process. We're meant to progress and to keep moving forward. So it's a very natural thing, and technology is what helps us to continue to advance and to progress. So as individuals and within relationships, we're together, but we're also apart, and we project ourselves onto the internet. On page 11, it says Kenneth Gregor explains how, through the multiplication of mediated interactions, we increase the number of roles that we play, the number of selves we put on. So we create these different identities for ourselves, for people to recognize and people to see, and sometimes we leave traces of ourselves. Sometimes the image that we leave gets abused, and there's just so many other ways that we're viewed because of technology. So, for example, I don't know if any of you know who JoJo Siwa is. I didn't really know who she was, so I had to kind of look her up. But I wanted to look her up because all I know is she's the 17-year-old girl dressed like a 9-year-old in super sparkly jackets and pants and shoes, and she always has this giant bow. And she looks like she's 9 years old, but she's 17 years old. And what happened is she started her career when she was younger. She was on a reality TV show with her mom called Dance Moms, I think. And that's what really started her career. And then she released an album and then went on tour and then was on all these TV shows and progressed that way. But the medium that she was on was a TV show, first of all, which is used for our entertainment, and a reality TV show, which even more so is just entertainment. And so the medium that she was exposed to from the beginning was that. And so the delivery that she had was to entertain or to create this alter identity, which I don't know, maybe I think anyway, it was a different identity than the one that she was used to. And so as time progresses, she's still on this medium. Now she's a singer, but she's still in front of the camera and people know her as this. So she keeps that image up, and now the next trace of her on her music videos, and then on her tours, and then on her bow collection, and on her makeup collection, and now she's a YouTuber. And YouTube is also a different form of media where we find entertainment or information about people. And so this image of herself, of this reality that she's created or that has been created for her, is heavily based on the medium in which she was on. And so I thought that was really interesting, and that was the first example that I could think of was how her reality or her identity was formed because of the media she was exposed to at a young age and continued to be on. So for my questions, the first one is, page 11 says, we leave traces of ourselves behind for others to encounter, multiplying ourselves over time to a degree unprecedented in human history. So how does that make you feel, and have you noticed this in your life? The second question is, how do you think technology has formed your identity or your new identity? So thanks so much, guys. I hope you have a good day and we can have a good discussion.